Well, hello, friend, and welcome to another episode of Van Life Living in New York. I'll tell you, I'm out at Evansburg, and I took a good hike in the woods. I'll tell you what I loved about it. There's hardly anybody anywhere. I ran into one person on the trail, so it was just a nice, quiet, peaceful walk. And I could hear the squirrels running around and birds flopping in the brush. I don't know, for some reason it made me think of the Force of Endor, if you ever watch Star Wars stuff, right? So it was just a beautiful walk. I was up in this area because I had some pre-surgery stuff to get done. I had to get my pre-admission testing done for the surgery I have coming up next week. So it's one of those things that, well, we'll just see what happens. I'm hoping it's going to go better and more pleasant than the last time I had something like this done, but we'll see. You know, sometimes life just happens and we have to roll with it, right? I was out here at this very pavilion in this park years back, and I remember that one of the things I was talking about was this nation is like a train running downhill with no brakes, you know? And there's a break in the track up ahead, and I don't see any stopping it, right? But what are we going to do, right? So I come out here to talk to God and be at peace. Because, you know, you can still have the kingdom even though everything's going wrong. Friend, you know, this is the first time I ever left the windsock off because there was no wind. Now all of a sudden there's a breeze. So I'm going to put that windsock on here. There we go. Now I got the windsock on, the wind will probably quit again, right? So anyway, that's the reason I spend a lot of my time in the woods seeking the kingdom, because, and the other thing I do is I do a lot of watching different things, right? And I'll tell you, there's a couple people I really like to watch. One of them is Troy Black, and I haven't watched him in a while. And it's funny because he said something today to kind of step me back on my heels. Because when people are talking, I'm listening, looking in the mirror about what they're saying, right? And I like him because me and him don't come about this from the same point of view, the whole Jesus perception. He's like grace and grace alone, which I agree that you receive the kingdom by grace, but the only way to keep it is to give it away. So he didn't come from the background I did. So every time I left my house sit empty, the demons returned and brought friends, right? Where I don't think he come from the background I did and doing the things I did. And, you know, my thought of Satan had a lot of power on me because of the things I've done, and I didn't know how to overcome it. And my father wanted to teach me the hard way. You know, some people say they just get this and their whole life's changed, they have the Holy Spirit, and then it's just this easy kingdom. But it wasn't that way for me because I wasn't even understanding what God wanted, because I didn't believe in Christianity, because I couldn't understand it from like the standpoint that Troy comes from. And now I can understand where he's coming from because, you know, I've got the kingdom, I'm in a relationship with my Father. So now, you know, things are a little bit different. And back in the day, I was trying to figure out that Jesus, and I wasn't getting it. But I did, a little at a time. He brought me a little bit at a time. I looked crazy, friend. I was seeking the kingdom, then I was seeking the world. Then I was seeking the kingdom, and then I'd leave my house sit empty. Demons would return and bring friends. And then I was back to seeking the world. And then I'd, you know, return to Christ. He'd clean my house. I'd leave it sit empty. Demons would return, bring friends. I was very slow on understanding what it was that I had to do, right? Plus, I wasn't understanding why to do it. So Troy talks about this joy, and in the beginning, it's kind of like if you've ever been in a dating relationship. When you first meet somebody, it's like all warm and fuzzy. You're like, oh, you just can't wait to be with them, right? But if you hang around each other long enough and start spending all day, every day together, sooner or later, you're going to find whether you've got something in common or not, right? And so, and not only that, but you're gonna get to know the person. And well, I didn't get to know Christ because I wasn't really wanting what he was offering at the time. I didn't even understand it. And I was selfish, and I wanted to, because I hated me, and I always felt like I was a nothing. I was always trying to know myself as something, and the more I tried to be, the less I became. And I don't know if you can relate to that or not, friend, but that's the way it worked for me because, well, the only way for me to be more is if you were less or someone was less, right? So for me to be great, to be up on that mountain of pride, I had to look down at other people because that's the way we judge things in the world, right? If something's greater, it has to be greater than something else to define it as great. So, Jesus said, of myself I am nothing. It is the Father who doeth my works, not even the words I speak are on my behalf, but on behalf of the Father who sent me. And I've just learned to say the same thing because if I take the credit, this thought of Satan, which is my pride, it's going to come to me and try to puff me up like a rooster. And that's going to be like, oh, you're great. See, you're great because you're better than that guy. And then that's where my hell's going to start, right? It's a slow, gradual, it can be a slippery slope, friend. It's like when I used to drink, I could drink normal for a little while, but the moment I was stressed out and I needed relief, well, I'd just pick up on drinking, and then once that started, it'd just go down the rabbit hole. So, I just had to learn these things through the years. And, well, I have the kingdom now because I've invited my father in, and this time, he's helped me build this tower, and I'm not leaving my house sit empty, and it's been a while, and not that I'm perfect by any means, but I'm far better than I was. And this relationship is far better than it was because I finally understood what he was offering and that I wanted it. And it wasn't even about eternal life. It was about peace, joy, and love. And when you start loving your neighbor as yourself, well, then you start finding all this joy in your life. And that's what the kingdom is, right? The kingdom is when you get to love others and it brings you joy, and then you give God the credit, and that brings him joy. And so everybody's getting joy, including you, through the whole process. And that's what the kingdom is. If you're looking for joy, peace, and love, well, perfect love casts out all fear. That doesn't mean all my fear is gone, right? Because I'm not the perfect love. But Christ is, and therefore, he came to represent my Father. So now I know my Father. And I have this great relationship with him, and we talk about things. And he told me to come out to this park today, and I wasn't even sure why. I'm like, Lord, I already went back the other direction. This is going to be a bit of a drive. It didn't even make sense. But he always knows better than I do, and he was right to send me here, because if I'd have went to like Valley Forge or one of the ones going south toward my place, well, then I wouldn't be here in this park just enjoying the peace. In fact, right over there, right now, I'm not going to bother turning the camera, but across the road there's a deer. Just walk back into the brush along the road. And just a little bit ago, there was one over here in the corner, and there was a couple on the road coming in, a deer and 2 fawns. So I got to really enjoy and I had one deer scare me to death out there. She was hiding in the brush, and when I walked up the trail, I got too close and it spooked her, and she bolted, and I couldn't tell what was crashing through the woods and which direction it was going. It took me a second to get my bearings on that. Because not supposed to be any bear around here, but they've been sighted up at Green Lane. So I don't know whether they've ever had one here or not, but as we move further into the mountains, they're spreading out, right? So they said that they're coming further into already areas that they would have not been in before. So you just never know these things. And it doesn't matter whether they are or not. My thought of Satan, which is my thought of fear and selfishness, well, it'll try to scare me with just about anything, won't it? It's my adversarial thought. and it's always trying to throw me off and make me not be in relationship with God. That's its job. Its job is to give me a free will choice, and that way me and my Father can both know our love by experience. He knows my love by experience because I choose him over the world, right? Christ over Satan, love over selfishness. All the same thing, right? So that's how my Father knows my love. Now, like I said, that doesn't mean I'm perfect by any means. And, you know, Troy was saying something that's really important, and sometimes I don't ever want to sound like I'm taking it out of context, because he talks about that all the work you do will be like filthy rags. If you're doing it for the credit, that is true. It'll be like filthy rags. But you're supposed to be doing it in the spirit of love for Christ, right? But people like me that have come from hell aren't going to get out of hell if we don't do something different. And by following Christ and doing what he asked, we will rise in the spirit of love. He will change us from the inside out. And sometimes we're not going to be perfect and we're going to make mistakes. And if you had a temper like I did, sure enough, every now and then it's going to show up a little, right? Unless it doesn't. I don't know what to tell you. I'm far better than I used to be. Every time, it used to be that I used to get angry, or I could spill something and I would just like flip out. And now I spill something, I look at it and go, I guess I'm going to have to clean that up, aren't I? I don't get all upset like I used to. Now, that doesn't mean if I'm not already positioned in a bad way that I'm not going to find, but it's funny how as I've developed this peace that I call the kingdom, it takes a lot less of the anger to make me feel bad. So all I have to do is start my blood pressure going up, and I'm like, oh, feels terrible. And then I want to go back, and I'm like, Lord, help me with this. And then he's like, all right. And then we talk about whatever it is, and he says, you're being ridiculous, aren't you, Jason? I'm like, yeah. He says, it's all right. You're getting better, right? My Father's got all the patience in the world as long as we're trying, right? So when I make a mistake and I know I was wrong, I just ask him for forgiveness, and he gives it to me. But I do ask him, because otherwise that thought of Satan will taunt me with it, right? That's just the way it is. It's my adversarial thought. It's here every day, waiting to take a pot shot at me, right? So when I screw up, it's going to take a shot. And if I don't ask for forgiveness, if I did something wrong, then that thought of Satan is going to remain in power, and then it's going to come and sneak up on me when I'm not even realizing it. So anytime I make a mistake, I ask for forgiveness. There's times where I'm not even sure if I made a mistake or not. And I'll be like, Lord, forgive me. He's like, well, I'll forgive you, but you really don't need forgiven for that one or whatever, because sometimes that's true. I would rather err on the side of caution, see? Because you just got to try to hang all the laws and the prophets on only 2 commandments, because one is like the other. That's what my Father's really after. If you look at those 10 commandments, that's what they're after. I'm going to make mistakes. You know, carpenters make the wrong cut in wood sometimes. I'm sure electricians hook up the wrong wire. I mean, we're human beings. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to spill things. We're going to do things. But it's truly looking for perfection is looking to hang all the laws and the prophets on only 2 commandments. So I'm always trying to love my neighbor as myself and love my Father with all my heart, mind, and soul. But I don't always know what to do. Like today I had someone that called me and needed something, but I was already on my way up for that procedure, and I might have been able to help them out, but then I would have had to sacrifice my whole afternoon with God. And plus, when I come up here, I usually visit some folks from my past life working in mental health, right? Because I loved a lot of the folks up here, really. And so sometimes I pop in on people. And so I didn't want to make that commitment because this was God's day. And I felt quite good about refusing to help this time. Because if I just go and stress myself out to go do it, then that's not going to increase my relationship with God, right? Then it's going to be like filthy rags. So I do it, but I also trust the Holy Spirit to tell me what to do. Sometimes he will just tell me. I'll be like, oh, I don't want to do that. He's like, go do it. but go do it. But I don't want to go do it, right? And then I'll be like, all right, Lord, I'm going to go do it. You know, and sometimes I do these things and I don't even know why I do them. I'm completely clueless on why it is he has me do the things that he has me do. Like the other morning, he told me to wash the car. And part of my learning humility was I used to keep my car clean. I used to have a pretty immaculate house. I used to stay well groomed. Part of all this learning humility was stopping doing all the things that society says that I'm supposed to do. I used to worry about how my hair looked and have it a little longer and kind of, you know, try to make it look good. And if I had a beard, I could never grow a beard till God gave it to me this time when I entered the wilderness. But even so, I used to have a mustache and a goatee, but they were very tight and neat. And I used to do trainings, and so I always was, sometimes I'd have it completely shaved off. So the guy you see on this camera is not the guy I was before. This was him teaching me humility and learning that it doesn't matter what everyone else's opinion of me is, that what really matters is God's opinion of me. And if I keep that in my head, well, then I'm going to end up doing the right thing for the right reason, which is to come to know love by experience and give God that experience also. So I don't really want to look beautiful. You notice I'm always wearing these old white t-shirts, you know, I don't fancy up no more. I don't even know if I've got any. I think I got one collared shirt left maybe. I have a suit, you know, it goes along with a suit for weddings and funerals, I guess. Last time I wore it was at my father's funeral. And that's just it, friend. I just don't need fancy things, and I'm on here to tell you about the end of the age, and if you want to seek the kingdom, that now's the time to do it. You know, I just gave you a video the other day showing you that the brides are waking up. They are. The video yesterday, I don't know if I mentioned the brides are waking up. I was talking about how America's Mystery Babylon, and I showed you all the different fault lines and all the ways that God can judge this nation in an instant. But today, what I can tell you is that this nation is waking up. The people are awakening to the thought of Satan made flesh. People are starting to realize, just like I'm telling you, other people are saying this all over the place about the corporate elite are setting us up. And it's not because they're corporate elite, it's because some of them are riders of the beast. And they're connected to the World Economic Forum. You can go watch them. They're literally talking about chipping us, right? You understand that in Revelation, there's no way that he could have even understood what they meant, that we would have a mark and that you'd have to wear the mark to buy or sell. He wouldn't have had a clue about all that, right? Thousands of years ago. It's pretty amazing if you look at the way the prophecies were called and they've all come through, you know? So I just want you to know, friend, that I love you because my Father loves you. That's it. I'm not ever trying to scare you, but I have to tell you the truth, because now is the time that if you're one of the 5 brides that are waking up and you don't have oil, now's the time to get some. Because this is why I don't say what Troy says about the once saved, always saved type thing. Because Jesus told you that 5 out of 10 brides that wake up are not going to have oil for their lamp. And they're going to run to the other brides and say, hey, give me your oil. And they're going to say, I'm sorry, friend, you're going to have to go get your own, and you ought to go to the store and get your own. Which is to go to go rise in the spirit of love, because that's what my Father's looking for. He's going to harvest the wheat. The wheat is the spirits of love, the ones that are loving their neighbor as themselves, feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, visiting the sick and in prison. There's other things you can do to love your neighbor, right? But if you're just loving those who love you, that's easy. Even the sinners and tax collectors do that. What credit is that to you? That's what Jesus said, isn't it? So I hope you're really getting to know what he said, because I want you to enter this kingdom, but if you wait till it's too late, he told you the door to the wedding is going to close before you get there. So if I was you, I'd go get a red letter edition of the Bible and read what Jesus said and read and start reading these parables. Understand that the only seed that survived was that fell in fertile soil. Dead seed is dead limbs, and dead limbs get gathered up and tossed into the furnace at the end of the age, right? That's what Jesus said. He said, I'm the vine, you're the branches. If you're fruitful, I'll prune you, even make you more fruitful. And he's actually talked about the Father being the gardener. So the Father would prune you and make you even more fruitful. But at the end of the age, that they were going to gather up all the dead limbs and toss them into the furnace, which is the end of the age, right? That's the place that's going to be a state or place of mental suffering. As you watch, if my Father harvests his wheat, all those that are out helping people, a lot of them are Christians. So a lot of these folks that are helping people, there's going to be nobody, and when that happens, the darkness will fall at a level and speed that you just can't even imagine, because you can see how fast the darkness is growing already. So imagine when there's nobody out there feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, and visiting the sick and in prison. Nobody will be converting, nobody will be getting better, nobody will have hope because nobody's giving anybody hope, right? And it'll just plummet into the darkness in a hurry. So I'm just saying, you might want to try to do this while there's still plenty of light, because it's going to be hard to do it when the light goes out, right? And there's only one reason to need oil for your lamp, because the light's gone. You're getting that, right? I mean, on a bright, sunshiny day, you don't light your lamp. You wouldn't need oil to get into the wedding, would you? So understand, Jesus said everything in those parables, but people didn't understand what he was saying. And I highly recommend you get to know what he was saying and really go pay attention, because the world's the tares. The church is both the wheat and the shaft, or the chaff, which is the worthless part according to Christ. It's those that were lukewarm, right? He's going to spit you out of his mouth. The only thing he's going to harvest are the wheat, the spirits of love, the ones that love their neighbor as themselves, and they loved the Father and Son so much they were bringing them a greater crop. And in that process, you start loving those that you're loving for the Father, you'll start loving them for yourself. All those people that you think are evil, they're just hurt people hurting people. And when you start loving them, a lot of them will turn. I'm not saying everyone will, but a lot of them will. And if you're walking in faith, you can do things that a man can't do on his own, right? Because that's the way it works for me. I don't have any courage. I'm a coward, friend. Been a coward from the beginning. I'll be a coward in the end. I'm just not a liar about that. But my Father, he's got great courage. And if you rely on him, you become like a child. Well, he'll guide you. All right, friend. Well, just know I love you because my Father loves you. And may God bless you and yours.